We are live. We are live. Welcome, everybody from the Love Your Life tribe. We have a special guest today, and I am super thrilled and excited. I know you guys are too. Please say hello and help me welcome Kelly-Marie Kerr, author of the book, The God Design, and so much more. Welcome. Round of applause. So I wanted to bring Kelly-Marie on to our tribe to discuss not only yoga, but how it relates to the chakras, how it relates to God. I loved her book, The God Design, which I cited very heavily in my dissertation. And so I became very familiar with it. Been listening to her and watching her on YouTube for years now. And so I thought this was a perfect time now during our chakra workshop for you to come on and tell us a little bit about you, your background, maybe how you were an actress and then all of a sudden started a book and how that came about to your success now.
Okay, well, I'm really excited. Thanks for inviting me to be with you today. Yeah, I went to drama school because I think from a very young age, my parents were always like, oh, you should do this and you kind of got the charisma or whatever. And I wasn't like 100% convinced, but I loved like messing around and singing and dancing and making up stories. So I just kind of like went with it really. And then as I kind of got older, I got really excited about scripts and characters and deeper meanings. I don't think I ever watched anything, even as a teenager, and took it at face value. Right. It was like, what are they trying to say? What does this story mean? Why is this person treating this person in this way? Like, what's the conflict? And I think a lot of that, like, love for literature and love for like symbolism and like deeper meanings definitely came from like my training within acting, and also with yoga. Like it stemmed in that background as well, because with like dance and acting, a lot of the time like we would use the Alexander technique, or we would use yoga as like a warm-up or as a grounding exercise to focus like into our character or whatever we were doing as a workshop, just a kind of way to like come into the room or the atmosphere and say, right, we're here, we're ready to be serious actors now. Right. As people, especially I think in Britain, there's this whole thing about being a serious actor. It's like, you're an actor or are you a serious actor? It's like, I don't even know. And I got really frustrated with the industry for a while because it never felt fair. And I know that seems silly because, of course, the way that society is it's not really fair. And I think we're all taught from a young age, like, life isn't fair. But I don't know, there was just always something at the back of my mind that felt like, is this really me? Like, is this really what and who I am, And I would go to castings and auditions all the time, and there were so many disappointments. And what you end up doing is putting yourself, second guessing yourself every single day of your life. Like, why aren't I good enough? And you'll sort of play, like I used to play back castings in my head, like on the train home, everything that I said, everything that went on from the moment I said, hello, I'm Kelly, and think to myself, did they like me? And, now I look back and I feel like, wow, that's actually quite damaging, to put that much emphasis on what other people think about you and how they perceive you. Because in a 15-minute time slot, there's absolutely no way that somebody could really know you or really know what you're about. They've already got a preconceived idea in their head of what they're looking for, and you either fit that mold or you don't. And when you're going up against, like, say, 1,000 people that look and sound very similar to you and have the same credentials that you do, it doesn't become a question of fair or not fair. It becomes a question of like, well, I've got a ticket for the lottery. Am I going to win? Like, the odds are just stacked, like, and you know, I had some like fairly good gigs, and which I really enjoyed, and I'll be like forever grateful for those experiences and the people that I met, and you know, the fact that it got me to like where I am now. But it always just pushed me more towards the writing side. Like, the more doors I had shut in my face, the more I wanted to take control, and the more I had to say about the world. And one of the first scripts that I wrote was just a very simple thing about a girl who does lots of like promotional modeling work, because you know, that's what she has to do in her everyday life in order to, you know, be an actor, because that's, you know, what it was. And then that progressed, and I started writing more and more, and a friend and I set up a production company. And I mean, we wrote about all kinds of things. We wrote this sci-fi drama called Indigo Children, which is actually really uncanny how much of it has come true, like in the world in the last few years. You know, that was quite a long time ago now. So, but it was always fictional. Like, there was a lot of truth in it, but what the writing would do is use fiction to tell, you know, really important themes and messages that, you know, we would decide about, that we wanted to get out. Like, we had one about angels in waiting, which was, you know, kind of about earth angels. And we just put together like a real, like, big body of work. And we were pitching to different companies, and it was really exciting. And you know, there were some times when we were like, oh, this, you know, this could be it, this could get commissioned, like, you know, this would be wonderful. And we weren't particularly fussy, you know. We were like, well, somebody might take our concept and change it, but we were like, well, we're little fish, so we'll just go with the flow, and one day, like, we'll have our moment to put something out there in the way that we want to. So we were very gracious about it. And then somewhere in the midst of it all, I got pregnant with my husband. And I think the love that I had for my son as a mum was one of like the huge catalysts that I had, that just really changed my world around, because I was like, I actually don't know if like the world is good enough for my son right now. You know, like, I want him to be able to turn on the telly and watch the news and feel like what he's being told is true. Right. I want him to know about the deeper meanings in the Bible. I want him to, you know, it sounds kind of like naive and like a fairy tale, but I just felt like I'm not like reaching my potential of what, you know, I have. And I started just really going deep with my Christianity at the time. And I was just, everything that I heard, like, that could be some kind of nugget to like help me really get to the crux of like who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing, like, I just absorbed so deeply. And I've always had really profound dreams, and that really like helped with my writing and everything else, because a lot of it would be based on things that I dreamt about. And I started getting different like scriptures coming through, and I heard the word seek vision at one point, and I was like, what does that mean? And I mean, it's all actually the story of that part of the transition is actually in my book, like, so I won't, you know, tell you the whole story, but it was almost like I was just following this path of stepping stones.
Yes.
And every time, you know, I was ready, there would be a new step shown me on my path. And the closer that I became to the way that I perceived God then within Christianity, the closer I became to really recognizing myself, you know. So it really is true that, you know, to know God is to know thyself. Because, you know, I know it sounds egotistical and people don't like it when you say, oh, you know, you are God or I am God. But, you know, it is true. However you look at it, like, the Holy Spirit is dwelling within us. So whether you think of it as, you know, I'm a seed, an extension of that great power, or that great power is an extension like coming from me, and it's like a cycle. You know, you can't actually get away from the fact that partially you are God, you know, or entirely, in depending on which way, you know, you sort of tend to view it. So, and I think that was quite hard for me to accept as a Christian, because I was, you know, it had been drummed into me from a really young age. Like, you know, I'm putting my hands together and looking up to, you know, something or someone. So kind of accepting that, you know, everything had been like, you know, a gift, but it had also been kind of like an evolving of my personal spirit, my personal God within me. It was like, it didn't really sink in. Like, it was like I kept being told it, but I didn't, like, it just, I don't know, unknowingly, I just sort of kept putting up the barrier, if you know what I mean. And then my yoga practice was just evolving like massively. I kind of went from just doing straight up hatha yoga to moving into kundalini and yin yoga, and then that's how I found the Essenes. And in one of the books that I read, it talks a lot about the meaning of like the word Essene and the word Nazarene, and how an Essene Nazarene is essentially like an ascension healer, and how they're working with this essence. And I was like, oh, that essence is this God, like this thing, you know, like inside me. And so, and then the more I started doing that, the more things just began to like fall into place, synchronicities just exploding everywhere I turned. Thought I was going a little bit crazy, didn't even really know who to talk to about it, because the visions were just coming so like hard and fast. And then one day I was like, I just like finished my day and I'd gone up to bed, and I was really excited. Like, I can't remember what I was excited about or why I was having such a great day, but I was just in my room, and as I sat back down on my bed, like I just started to feel these vibrations like rising through me, and I was just like, whoa. And I didn't want it to stop, but I was a tiny bit scared, but I was like, oh no, this is amazing. Like, what's happening? And then it just felt wonderful. Like, it felt like, you know, oil was literally like oozing on me. And I was like, wow. And I kept thinking about the anointing oil. And so I was so close. Like, I was just so on the verge to like just really getting it all. But it wasn't until I saw John St. Julian's video with Jim Carrey in it, that was the final moment for me, where I was like, oh, of course, yes. And then when I looked back at everything that I'd been learning and reading and putting together, I was like, of course, like,
it makes sense.
Yeah, just everything just suddenly became crystal clear. And I was like just so grateful for that moment. So
Isn't it funny how like we all have like this journey laid out for us, that each step ends up getting us exactly where we're supposed to be, and we're supposed to go through ups and downs and through all arounds just to be able to understand it from every point of view.
yes.
And that's just crazy. Everybody has their story of how they got there. That's amazing.
It's so weird as well, because I promise, like, it's crazy that if you had have told me that I would be putting myself out there in this way, like a few years ago, I would have been like, oh no, I don't know if I can do that. Like, not because I'm shy, but because I always felt like there was so much stigma attached to religion, and so much judgment, that I never really wanted to talk about that side of my life. But now it's like I'm so convicted in it, and like I know so vividly from my own experience how freeing it is, and how wonderful it is to know that it's like, how could I ever not, share it?
And you've been sharing it ever since, and it's been growing, and everybody's like, I've seen the difference of when you first started putting it out there. Well, not first, but when I found it, and then how much it has grown since then. And so it's like, oh, wow, like just this little bit of time, like time's ticking. And if we're sharing constantly, it grows and grows and grows. So it's like another avenue of sharing this information. And I wanted to say right here on the comments, I'm not sure if you can see them, but everyone here is saying hello to you and welcome. And I love it. So I am so glad that they're all here and loving, and they love your accents. Yeah. So what can you tell us a little bit about, let's say, the heart? We just did all of them up to the heart chakra. So we're transitioning from the heart to the throat. Do you want to talk about that as far as what you've been talking about, or do you want to relate it to yoga, or however you want to?
I mean, for me, like, the heart is obviously like the most important. That's why I wear this little like blue heart out of the blueprint. Like, it's just, I always see that divine essence, as being blue, even though the heart chakra is always symbolized by green. I don't know, for me, like, I associate the color blue with that essence that kind of coagulates there. It's almost like we have a huge train station in London called Clapham Junction, which is kind of like the hub of all the trains going in and out. So I think of the heart as being that junction where you've got the lower chakras beneath, and then, the upper. So it's almost like the earth, and then everything underneath the earth, and everything, the light, the sound, the air, like above the earth. And I think, like, in the Essene practices and in the Indian practice as well, they talk a lot about bhakti, which is, divine love and devotion, or unconditional love, which I think, biblically would kind of be more like the Passion of Christ, which I think is kind of the key, really, to the whole thing, because we absorb so much from our external world. But when we're rooted in love, it kind of just, that's kind of like the gateway to being able to have vision. Like, and by vision, I don't mean, like sight, but like having like that supernatural sight to really see and understand things like in a deeper way. Mm-hmm. And then, like, moving into the throat chakra, it's in Essenes Yoga, one of the 7 main elements of the yoga that they used to do, which one of them is mantra yoga, which again, like, they would create the syllables to correspond with each chakra. So as you're saying a certain syllable or a certain sound, that's creating like a creative vibration that's actually helping you to like harmonize that energy within you. Mm-hmm. And so, biblically it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word is God. And it's funny because that scripture works on so many levels, because sound, creates, and mm-hmm. light and sound are very much like intertwined. So we think about the Big Bang and this light was created, but also, the harmonies. I mean, in the mainstream, like, we don't really talk about how, there's so many sounds in space, and, there's these tones, like, and, all around us, it's like we can only see a tiny part of the full spectrum of light with our eyes. We can also only hear a tiny part of the sound spectrum, mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that there isn't more that's, you know, creating. I actually posted a video, I think it was last week, about a lady who sticks electrodes on plants so that people can hear the songs and harmonies that are coming from within flowers and plants. And it's just so beautiful to know. So
I need to check that out.
the throat, you know, is such an important junction. Like, it's, you know, it's our truth. The thyroid, let, you know, scripturally, let your yes be yes and your no be no, because, you know, we have to know what we want to say no to in order to be very clear about what we're willing to accept.
Right.
You know, so much goes on here. And of course, it's where the medulla oblongata, like the brainstem, meets the spinal cord. So in terms of chemistry, there's so much happening. There's so many hormones getting transmuted, so many neurotransmitters getting changed up. It's, you know, it really just is like a hub of like action. And when I do yoga, when I do my practice, I always like to begin by just centering myself within each chakra, so that as I'm moving through or breathing through, like, I can just kind of pick up on things that, you know, might need like a little bit of work. But it's funny with yoga because there's the kind of obvious yoga, which is, you know, your down dog and your sun salutations. Right. But, you know, there's so much more to it than that. Like, one of the 7 limbs is literally bhakti, which means, you know, practicing loving devotion for yourself, loving devotion for what you do, loving devotion for, you know, people around you. And then you've got jnana, which is, you know, it's about studying and being interested in the divine and in, you know, trying to understand it. And I think with mantra, like, it's, and the throat chakra, it's really important to know that certain sounds and syllables have been created to get the mind focused on the divine, on the creative, so that that's what can really like bring our vibration up within meditation. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, affirmations are fantastic, you know, and they do bring us to like a new place and a new ownership of ourselves. You know, I am beautiful, I am powerful, I am this, I am that. That's all fantastic. Like, I'm not saying that any of that is, you know, not useful, but the deeper like sounds like Om, Padme, Hum, like, that's, you know, been specifically designed to coincide with the chakras and to bring us into alignment, so that our pituitary and our pineal, or our male and our female, our Mary and our Joseph, like within, can really like harmonize. And that's when, you know, the secretions are so balanced and they, you know, secrete into the third ventricle, and we, you know, we get this real feeling of like knowingness and balance. So I think the best mantras are the, you know, the really old school ones that have been specifically designed. They even call the syllables bijas, which means seeds. So it's interesting that, you know, you have this association between the word, the seed, the syllable, you know, the sound, the light. Like, it's who we are. It's the way we've been designed. And, you know, the same with a computer, when we're using it in the correct way, like, it functions like beautifully, and we can do so much with it.
I love that. The throat chakra would be the narrow gate, right? The narrow place to, okay. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so the straight and narrow gate, what's that? The scripture's just completely gone out of my head. But That's actually like really interesting that you mentioned that, because someone said it to me yesterday, and that scripture is in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was written like thousands of years before the Bible. But people, you know, say like, oh, well, don't quote from other scriptures, and it's like, yeah, but the Bible's literally like taken that from the Epic of Gilgamesh and tried to pass it off like as its own. And it's only because we, you know, we get to travel around now and we have the internet and everything else that it becomes really clear. But yeah, straight is the gate and narrow is the way. That's it.
There we go. Yeah, I always like forget. As soon as I go live, I'm like, what was the scripture again?
I knew it would come if I just started babbling about something else. Yeah, so you know, we have this opportunity once a month. I don't know if you've been talking much about the sacred secretion, but when the moon is in our star sign, that's when our, you know, most potent cosmic energy is, you know, basically we're absorbing it from the atmosphere, like all around us. And it, you know, it really lines up with who we are. So it goes again with that theme of like, know thyself. And in order for us to actually be able to utilize it, it has to be like preserved and honored. So straight is the gate and narrow is the way, and few be there that find it, is really important, because it's emphasizing the fact that the world is almost kind of designed, especially in this day and age, for us to not find the straight and narrow way, you know. Like the things that will compromise the sacred secretion or the Kundalini energy, whatever you want to refer to it as, are, you know, things like alcohol, you know, bad diet, too much sugar, being lazy, you know, lying. Like it's kind of like really basic stuff that we're told from, you know, when we're little children to, like, you know, be good, be nice, love one another. But it's all like the real
for real. It's like, no, really.
Yeah. And you know, we think about like our cerebrospinal fluid needs to be in a state of pH balance. And oftentimes I think people really hone in on the physical side of what that means, which is very important. Like, you know, we don't want to over acidify our bodies by eating and drinking rubbish, but there's also like a very emotional and mental side to that picture. And that's where our other bodies come into it. The book of Revelations talks about our 4 main bodies, and they're the 4 horses that you see, I think, in chapter 2, 4, I think, even going on throughout the book of Revelations, they keep coming up again and again. You've got the red horse, which is the emotional body, the pale horse, which is the physical body because it decays, it's pale, you know, the black horse, which is the mental body, and of course the white horse, which is the spiritual, ethereal body. So in terms of being acidic or not allowing yourself to become acidic, it's really important to remember about the emotional body and how, you know, like things like anger or bitterness, like, you know, anger can be helpful for a minute because it can, you know, help us, you know, with our moral compass, but it's really important to just process it and let it out in, you know, like a reasonable way, so that it doesn't actually like change your inner biology and allow you to become acidic inside. Because the chakras, each one corresponds with one of our really, really important endocrine glands, our ductless glands. So thankfully, you know, we live in a day and age where endocrinology is highly regarded and recognized as being a fundamental part of like our health. But, you know, they used to cut out the endocrine glands, like even like 60 or 70 years ago, because they didn't know what they were for. Wow. So they just assumed that they were from some kind of old human evolution and that we've just outgrown them. So like, chop them out.
No.
It's like not helpful at all. But yeah, so like in your root chakra, you've got your gonad glands, and then like moving up in your heart, you've got your thymus, which is like a fragile butterfly. And it's really sad, like how when we become teenagers and we go through puberty, our thymus gland actually starts to shrink and deteriorate, because the way that we have sexuality like shoved in our face, we from a very young age like develop this kind of like yearning and like craving of acceptance from the opposite sex, or the same sex if that's the way you're drawn. And all of the temptations that are just there, like within everything, people just start wasting that vital energy. And the thymus gland is connected to that, because within the endocrine system, like we have this pathway between the pituitary, which is kind of like the master gland in that sense. I mean, the pituitary and the pineal very much work together, they are like a partnership. But the pituitary like kind of almost like supersedes the pineal, in terms that without the pituitary stimulating the pineal with its oxytocin and its vasopressin, the pineal really can't do what it really needs to do. And that's again where the love comes into it. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like love is being taken out of the equation in the world that surrounds us, and it's more of a focus on, we look for like a partner that's beautiful and acceptable to our families, and kind of fits in like with the life that we
Culture
have.
Conditioning too.
Yeah, so it's a shame. I've completely forgotten what my point was. I'm really sorry.
It's fine, you're fine.
But yeah, like each chakra is connected with one of the endocrine glands. So when we think about vibration and chakra health and acidity, for example, like within the adrenals, the adrenal glands, that's like kind of like our fear gland. So when we're in a state of fear, all of a sudden the adrenals like start pumping out all of this adrenaline, which immediately acidifies the body. So like a can of Coke doesn't do that. Right. But being in a really fearful situation with, somebody that you're really wary of, or playing a really violent game, or, watching a terrifying movie, it will do that. So, little do we know that just by engaging in the things that we're surrounded by on a daily basis, like there's a real tendency, like it's very easy to become acidic in that emotional way. And obviously that then has a knock-on effect spiritually, mentally, physically.
And I think a lot of people forget just all the different bodies that we have. Like because we've been conditioned, we've been, just thinking of our physical, what we see with these two eyes, and then we don't realize the psychological, physiological, and all the, logicals that there are that are important, that are part of our entire enlightenment journey. So
yeah,
I'm glad that you've been bringing that out to the surface, like out to the world, so they can see that there's more to it than just, our physical reality. What did they say?
And a lot of people would say like, oh, it's just woo woo, like you can't see the chakras, so how do you know they're there? But we actually live in a day and age, I mean, this kind of information is quite suppressed still. But if you look in the right places, you can find images of the ethereal body. Like even on a PET scan, like you can see where the heat is, where the energy is, and it is around the endocrine glands, and they are ductless. So I feel like that tells us a lot, because it's like, well, if they're ductless in terms of they're not really connected to the body in a way that we can physically perceive, then how else are they working?
They're just hovering. They're just there.
That's magic.
It's magic. But I mean, magical, magnetism, it's all part of that etheric world that we're trying to bring attention to. The stuff that people can't see. What would you say would be some advice for somebody starting out with chakras or with yoga and they want to get closer to God, but they might feel like they don't mix? I mean, you're a perfect combination of how they all mix. You share it very well and explain it very well. So what would be your advice for somebody starting out?
There's an amazing book about yoga. It's a really short book called Aleph-Bet Yoga. Hold on.
And guys, just so you know, I'm going to put on here her app, because she has an app called Seek Vision Freedom Yoga. So I'm going to put that right here. And you guys can check that out along with her book, of course.
Yeah, so this Aleph-Bet Yoga, I mean, it's really nice. It's really short. It just explains how like Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, like they're all connected. Like when you trace it back to Sumeria, which you have the shining ones. Sumerian meant shining one, and I think that's linked, like, with the Essenes, which were the immovable light race. And when you go all the way back to the roots of history, as far as the textbooks can tell us, like, it's really evident that yoga and the chakra system isn't something to be fearful of. There's a couple of videos on my YouTube channel that I talk about the history of the Essenes and where it's shown to us by more recognized teachers, so that could potentially be helpful. But I mean, this one is basically shows like how each different pose, you can see that, relates to like each letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which is really nice because also the Hebrew alphabet like links to our amino acids and creative energies in that way. So it's just, I think it's like, my advice would be to just keep an open mind and don't be afraid to ask your own questions and do your own research. And when you're Googling things, I would say, like, maybe avoid the first page, like go to page 2 of the search results and, pick something that you intuitively feel drawn to. And if it immediately dismisses something or is too strong against something, then try and read something else, because our computers, unfortunately, are programmed in a way with cookies and algorithms that if we get too much into like a certain way of seeing things, all it will do is perpetuate that view. So it's really important to ask questions for both sides and then kind of like make up our own minds. I'd say that's been a really important thing for me to do. And then obviously, come away, meditate on things, think about things. And I think, like, when we're in tune, we have like a really strong spirit of discernment. And I always like to think to myself, there's a reason why the word cure is in the word curiosity. So, like, don't be afraid to be curious and to answer your own questions and ask more questions.
Ask and you shall receive.
Yes, seek and ye shall find.
And you are at Seek Vision on YouTube. For those that want to follow her, please subscribe to her. She's amazing and breaks down a lot of biblical scriptures. I was watching one recently of Revelations, and when you were going over the breakdown of that, it's amazing, and you soak it in and meditate on it and take time to like really grasp it. And then once you do, everything's just clear. It's amazing how clear everything is just from watching one video of yours. So yeah.
Thank you.
You've changed my life in so many ways, and I'm sure you've done to so many others, because the information you've been putting out there needs to be seen, needs to be heard, needs to be in our world, especially now. So thank you for that. For everybody, you know, thank you, because that's you. Yes, your purpose, and you're here for that. And I just appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to, I mean, you said a lot, but any last words that you want to tell our amazing tribe of people that want to level up and do amazing work? I always bring up that astrology is connected very much to this, because there's so many layers that we can look at it in, the microcosm and the macrocosm. So to me, that's very exciting, because I just like mixing all together. But any last words that,
I mean, yeah, like the Bible reinforces that as well, you know, and the stars they shall be for signs. So, you know, it's not saying like worship them or anything like that, or have idols, but it's just about kind of common sense in a way. But thank you so much for everything.
Yes, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for just saying yes and coming on here, and me finally getting to talk to you face to face, because we've been on the DM for a while. But yes, thank you so much, and I hope that everybody gets a chance to start following you and like becoming a little bit more clear to who they are.
Thank you, Joanna, and yeah, thank you to you too for your support and kind words.
Guys, get her book, The God Design. It's on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
And audio
version.
I think I have the audio and I have this. I have it all. But yes. So all right. Well, thank you so much. I will see you guys.
The YouTube channel is actually just my name. So it's just Kelly-Marie Kerr.
Kelly-Marie Kerr.
And I've got some exciting stuff coming. So
awesome. I can't wait. I love the Polar Express version. Okay. I went back and watched it. We watched it on Christmas Eve just so that we can see all of the stuff that you said. Yeah, and we watched it right before your video and then the Polar Express so that we can break it down. So my whole family knows your name, like knows your voice.
Amazing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Guys, have a great, amazing weekend. I will see you guys tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.